Hi, and in today's episode we're going to review Troyes.
It's not pronounced that way.
What? Let's try again. Hi, welcome to another episode, and we're going to have a look at the worker placement game Troyes.
It's not pronounced that way.
No? Let's try again. Hi, welcome to another episode, and this time we're going to take a look at this.
It's French. Trois.
It's French? Oh, we're going to have a look at Trois. Trois. See? Troyes. Whatever. Let's have a look. Trois is a worker placement game, but it's kind of slightly different from quite a few worker placement games in the fact that there's a lot of dice involved. And these dice are different colours. We have red, yellow, white dice here, as we can see. And there's also black dice. And the game consists over 4 rounds. So each round, 1, 2 and 3, will be marked by a card, red for the military, white for the priesthood and yellow for the civic hall. And at the start of the game you'll put workers in the 3 spots. They'll be filled up, you wouldn't be blanks, but essentially each worker you have in the red spot will give you 1 red dice. In the white spot you get 1 white dice, and down here in the yellow spot you'd get yellow dice. And you have to pay, so it costs 2 coins from your income. It's marked on the board for this one. 1 for the priestdom, and the civic hall is free because obviously bureaucracy of civic hall costs nothing. Clearly in 15th century France, that is, not 21st century Britain, but that's another subject. And you'll have a pool of dice and you'll then roll them. And these dice will have a value, and those values you'll use if you had a worker, so on a spot. So let's say the blue player had paid the 4 coins and put a worker on the spot. Now if he didn't have any workers, he would have to use influence, which can be found at the top of the board. You have an influence track there. So you'd need to pay 2 and you would get a worker from your personal supply. He would go on here. He would be worth 2 victory points at the end of the game. And he would let you take the yellow dice that you've rolled, number of 1 to 3, and divide by 2 and get that much money. So if we'd have rolled 5 divided by 2 is 2, so you'd get 4 coins. And there's a variety of these different cards in red, yellow and white. So this is the chivalry, and this lets you place cubes on the event markers. Divides the number of red dice there by 4, so you'd need quite a high number. And up here in white we have for 6 to put a worker on. Number of white dice divided by 4. It does something there. I think that means you can buy a dice for 0. There's a handy sheet that comes with the game because the symbology sometimes can be a bit confusing, but there is a sheet that tells you what they all do along with the events, which we'll look at in a minute, and the characters, which we'll also look at in a minute. So at the start of each round, what we'll do is we'll pull an event here. So in this case we've got succession conflict. That'll tell me to pull a yellow card from the yellow event pile and place that down as well. And that one is wayfarers. And again, these have different abilities. So this will put a grey player in the red area, and this will put a grey player in the thing. So if we look at the areas there, your colour can get knocked out. So if he was there and there was a blue there and a grey worker came along, then that one's knocked out. But also before the round goes to the worker placement phase, you've got a guide here. So we've got, you get your income, then you assemble your workforce, which is the number of dice of different colours. Then this is the event phase, so you do the events here. And what you'll do is you have to counter the number of black dice. Now here there's only one, so you'd roll the black dice, 2. You'd have to spend one of your dice from the dice pool of that value to beat it, and then you get an influence for doing so. If there was multiple black dice, like here on the Normans attacking, so that would mean 3, 2 plus that one. So then you have to beat a bigger pool. Now one player who's start player, marked by this card, could beat them all with his dice, and don't forget the red are doubled. So a red 4, that would get rid of 8 pips, so 5, 6, so you could get rid of 2 dice, 5, 6, 7, 8 there. However, you might not want to do that, because what you can do is get rid of the highest, because you've always got to get rid of the highest if you're first, and then that passes. That means the second player will have to get rid of this dice here and use one of their dice, and so on until they've all gone. And then it moves on to the actual actions phase. Yes, the actual actions phase. So you can activate an activity card like I've shown. You can construct the cathedral. We'll just have a quick look at that in a minute. You can fight the events, or you can pass, or you can add another worker to a building. Passing is good because it gets you money if you don't have any dice left to use and you don't want to buy other people's dices. So fighting the events is here. So this one would take red dice divided by 4 and would get you a cube on here from your supply. And when all the cubes are got, the person with the most cubes gets 4, and the next person along with the next highest number of cubes gets 2. And then that would go. And if one person only defeats it, then there's 6 points there. And they keep this because it could be worth points at the end. So the other action here is constructing the cathedral. And what you do is a white dice of that colour. You put one on, and then you get the reward as shown. So on this side, you get an influence and a victory point, and on this side you get an influence, 2 influence and a victory point. There's the agriculture spot, which lets turn yellow dice into money. Not the best rate, but if you've got nothing left to do, that's good. And where it says you can put a worker down here, so on a 1 or a 6, on a 1 or a 6 there, you could put a worker in there, or for a 2 and a 5 there. And it's a little bit different dice rolls on each one. So here's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 for the military, and again it's a little bit different for the priesthood. So that will continue over 4 rounds, and by then each one of these spots here on the board will have an ability on it, and those abilities get better over time. And each person also has a sort of secret identity, and these have different things. So for this guy, it's the number of people you've got out in the civic area. Could be worth 1, 3 or 6. This guy wants the most influence, for example. So if you could get 15 influence, 6 victory points. Now these score for the other players, so they're going to try and figure out what you've got, and if they match. So if I was not playing this card, but this was second player's card, and I had 15 badly focused influence, then I get 6 points. And so on and so forth until the game ends there. And you can use influence to do things. So for example, 1 influence, reroll a dice. 2 influence, you need that to buy the worker. As I said, to place them on the card there. If a worker comes back to your pool, this one would come back at the end of the round, then the green player could place that on a worker placement spot without having to buy a additional worker there. And then you've also got the ability, which is quite pricey but very good. For 4 influence, you can flip 3 dice, so they change their values. So 1 to a 6, for example. Basically flip their face. The other thing that's quite cool is, let's say this is the second player's dice pool there. Well, I could buy these, and you can buy them to use them yourself, and the other player can't refuse. And basically it's a cost. If you're buying 1 dice to use, it's going to be 2. If you're buying 2 dice, or your total pool, sorry, should I say, is going to be 2, and each one costs 4. And if your total pool of dice is going to be 3, then each dice costs 6. So getting a pool of 3 is going to be very expensive. Sometimes money can be a bit tight in this game. There's the coins. And whoever has the most victory points at the end, which are kept secret on these chits, wins the game. So that's Trois. Let's have a look at my final thoughts, kind of what I think of the game. When I watched Richard Ham, aka Rado's run through for Trois, I was actually quite excited to get it. Made it look like it was a good 2-player game, and I play a lot of 2-player games with the wife, so I thought, yep, and it fell flat. The wife really doesn't like it that much. She describes it as way too fiddly, and I know what she means. It's the dice to do the actions. You have to divide by a number, and that gets you what you do. And it's like doing maths. I know it's not complicated maths, and both myself and my lovely lady aren't unintelligent people. Well, okay, maybe I am, but she isn't. And it's just doing sums. Now, you might say that a lot of the Euro games are doing sums, but they're hidden. It feels obfuscated. Yeah, it feels slightly hidden. So you know, you're doing the game, and though there's maths involved, you're not thinking maths in your head. And also the symbology, it's crazy. You pick a card up and you go, I don't know what this does. It should be obvious. It isn't. And that's trying to make it language independent, and it just doesn't work. I'm lukewarm. I would give this game a 5, 6. It's got potential to be good. Played with the right people, I think it could actually shine. But am I going to bother trying to get it off the table when there's better games? That's the question. So, disappointment, that's it. That's how I describe it. I wanted it to be great. It so looked like it'd be our type of game in Richard's run through, and it wasn't. But that's gaming for you. But I'm not saying it's a bad game, because it isn't. It's just too fiddly. It's quick though. In a 2-player game, it doesn't take long at all. So that's one advantage. Yeah, that's Trois, not Troyes, or Troyes, or whatever I said earlier. Okay, stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to get a cup of coffee.